Today I'm going to read you The Elephant Dancer, a story of ancient India by Jessica Gunderson. The Elephant Dancer, a story of ancient India. India. Chapter 1, The Elephant Girl. India, 122 AD. My first mother was an elephant. She bathed me and carried me with her trunk. When I was hungry, she fed me grass and leaves. For the first 2 years of my life, I thought I was an elephant. One day, a group of elephant hunters came to the river where my elephant mother and I were bathing. The hunters surrounded us, their arrows raised. My elephant mother curled her trunk around me and raised me high. "It's a child," one of the hunters gasped. "A baby girl." "She must be an orphan," another one said. "What should we do with her?" The leader of the group shrugged and answered, "We should kill the elephant and sell the girls as a slave." Another hunter stepped forward. "I have 4 sons," he said, "but my wife always wanted a baby girl. I will take her to live with me." I cried and cried when they took me from the elephant. I cried so much that my new father had no choice but to take the elephant home too. My new parents were poor, but they were kind. They loved me like one of their own. They named me Lally. My new mother was glad to have a baby girl, even though my first sounds were elephant sounds. My elephant mother, Bhuvana, roamed the hills behind my parents' house. "Raoo," she often called. "Maroo," I answered. At first, my parents thought my elephant sounds were funny, but as I got older, they grew stern. "No more trumpeting," my mother commanded. You are a girl, almost a young woman." But I didn't answer. I was a stubborn girl. Bhuvana was stubborn too. My father tried to train her to haul wagons, but whenever a wagon was attached to her, Bhuvana would only spin around in circles. When she tried to teach her to carry bricks in her trunk, she flung them in the air and caught them when they came back down. Our trees had no leaves. Bhuvana ate them all. Our yard had no grass. Bhuvana ate that too. And she was still hungry. "What will we do with this elephant?" my father moaned. "She won't work, and she's eating us out of house and home." In response, Bhuvana nibbled at the roof of our house. "We have to sell her," my father said. "Yes," agreed my brother Samir. He never liked Bhuvana. "You can't sell her," I shouted. "She is mine." Maroo! Chapter 2, The Cruel Queen. My favorite thing to do, besides spending time with Bhuvana, was going to the capital UR for festivals. I would sit for hours watching the royal dancers. Their gold skirts shimmered as they moved. I wanted to be a dancer too. After every festival, I spun in the dirt outside our hut. Whenever I danced, Bhuvana's mouth curved up as she was smiling. But my parents frowned. "Your dancing is stirring up dust," my father scolded. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were gentle. "You must put away your dreams of becoming a dancer," she says. "We are poor. You must spend your time working, not dancing." "I will never give up my dreams," I said. I was a stubborn girl, but I did work. I made chapatis, or flat bread, and gathered fruit. I was jealous of my older brothers. All of them, except Samir, were married. Their wives did the work for them. Samir still lived with us. I loved him, but I wasn't sure if he loved me. Bhuvana loved him too, but he snarled whenever she tried to nuzzle him. One day, Samir and I were gathering berries. We heard the jingling of bells. Bhuvana, who was grazing on a fruit tree, stopped munching and listened. Then I heard a familiar sound. "Roo! Elephants!" I I exclaimed. Bhuwana stomped her feet and trumpeted in return. It's the king and queen, Samir says as he peered down the road. I clutched Samir's arm. The queen? I asked. The king, Karikala Chola, was a kind man, but I had heard stories that the queen was a cruel woman. She sent people to prison for no reason. Those stories are not true, said Samir. I poked my head between the trees. A grand parade was moving slowly down the road. The royal elephant wore a blanket of woven purple and gold silk. The queen rode on his back. I crouched behind a tree. Hide, I told Samir, but he stood tall, unafraid. Bhuwana shook her ears and trumpeted. She was excited to see another elephant. Be quiet, I ordered, but she didn't listen to me. She stomped toward the road and stood in the path of the royal parade. Get out of the way, the queen ordered as her elephant stopped. But Bhuwana didn't move. She scooped up a stone and tossed it into the air. Then she caught it with her trunk. I groaned. These were the tricks my father often punished her for. And my father was far less cruel than Queen Chola. But the queen smiled. She clapped her hands. Marvelous, she cried. I stared at her in amazement. Queen Chola reached out her hand. Bhuwana nuzzled it with her trunk. A wonderful elephant, said the queen. Her skin is so pale, and she can do tricks. She'll make the perfect royal elephant. Too bad she's mine, I thought. Bhuwana moved aside to let the parade pass. She trumpeted sadly. The royal elephant trumpeted back. Goodbye, elephant, called the queen. I was worried. Bhuwana, I called. She didn't listen to me. She stood staring after the elephant and Queen Chola. My heart thumped in jealousy. I knew Bhuwana was lonely without other elephants, but wasn't I enough to keep her happy? Maru, I called. Bhuwana barely glanced at me. She knew I wasn't an elephant. Go home, Lali, Samir ordered. He, too, was watching the royal parade continuing down the road. I picked up my basket and returned home, and in the morning, Bhuwana was gone. We have to find Bhuwana, I told my family. She's an elephant. She can't hide easily. My brother sighed. You must let her go. Samir nodded and said, besides, she was eating us out of house and home. I glared at him. You're glad she's gone, I accused. Samir shrugged. She's an elephant, he said. She's my elephant, I replied. I knew my family wouldn't understand. They didn't love Bhuwana as I did. But I was stubborn. We had to find her. I know where she is. My father raised an eyebrow. Queen Chola has stolen her, I announced. My mother looked sad. In that case, you will never get her back, I thought. She said, unless I steal her back, I thought. I went outside to call for her. Maru! But there was no answer. That night, when my family was asleep, I sneaked out of the house and went in search for Bhuwana. The capital, Yvar, wasn't very far, but the more I walked, the farther it seemed, and the small shadows on the road seemed like large, scary monsters. Every time I heard a noise, I hid in the tall grass along the road. I knew that thieves often traveled at night. I wondered what would happen if I was kidnapped. Would my family search for me, I thought? Would Samir even care? The morning sun rose over Ur. The king's palace sparkled. Crowds bustled around the palace. They looked like they were preparing for a festival. Some dancers twirled in the road outside the palace doors. Normally, I would have stopped to watch them, but not today. I have to find Bhuwana. I must speak with Queen Chola, I told the palace guards. One of them chuckled. He looked at my rumpled clothing and dirty hair. She would never speak to someone like you, he said. Besides, another guard added, she's preparing for the parade. I'll wait for her, I said. Then a thought struck me. Will she be riding an elephant? But the guards ignored me. No one would help me. Not the guards, not my parents, not Samir. I was on my own. For hours I waited in the hot sun. Finally, the parade began. There were dancers leading the parade. Gold bangles on their arms clinked as they danced. Their dresses were swirls of color. I couldn't take my eyes off them. My feet twitched. I wanted to dance with them. No, I told myself. I must keep watching for the queen. I pulled my eyes away from the dancers. Then I saw Buvana. I hardly knew it was her. Her skin was fresh and clean. She wore a jeweled head cloth. A blanket of silk covered her back. She was a royal Buvana. She was no longer my Buvana. Queen Chola sat on her back, smiling and waving to the crowd. The queen tossed a gold hoop into the air. Buvana caught it with her trunk. The crowd cheered. Buvana flapped her ears. I saw her smiling mouth. She was happy. I thought I should let her go. I turned away. Then I decided to give it one last try. I took a deep breath and let out the longest and loudest elephant trumpet I could. Maroo! I trumpeted. Buvana stopped walking. She turned her head this way and that. She was looking for me, but the crowd was too thick. She couldn't see me. Maroo! She called back to me. I heard the sorrow in her voice. She didn't miss me. Forward, Avani, ordered the queen. Avani, that was not her name. Her name was Buvana. Buvana did not listen to the queen. I saw a bit of mischief into her eyes. She turned in a half circle. He took a step forward, then a step backward. Turn around, cried the queen. She looked frightened. Buvana tilted her head. She took in a half circle again. Then she took another step backward. No. Forward, Queen Chola yelled. Buvana stepped to the side. She turned her head and looked at the queen who was riding on her back. You're going the wrong way, moaned the queen. Buvana turned in a circle again. You naughty elephant, scolded the queen. Buvana stepped to the side again. Then she stopped, waiting for the queen's approval. The queen was silent. The crowd was silent too. Then someone laughed. The whole crowd burst into laughter. The queen's Chola's mouth twitched as if she was about to laugh too. Buvana! I called. I pushed through the crowd. I rushed up to my elephant. She hugged me close to her trunk. I thought I saw a tear in her eye, even though I knew elephants didn't cry. I tapped Buvana's trunk. She lifted me up high, the way she had when I was a baby. The crowd cheered. But I didn't care about them. I glared down at the queen. You, she said. I said, pointing my finger at her. You stole my elephant. No one speaks to the queen like that, the queen said. The guards surged forward, their swords raised. As if she knew I was in danger, Buvana tightened her grip on me. I'm accused by a child, Queen Chola laughed. But she stopped when she realized no one was laughing. My heart stopped. Did they believe me? Did the crowd believe me? They were silent, waiting to hear the story. You stole my elephants, I repeated. I did not. The people around us muttered in disbelief. I gained more courage. This is my elephant, I told the crowd. She saved me when I was a baby. When the queen saw my elephant, she said she wanted her for herself. The next day, my elephant was gone. The crowd looked from me to Queen Chola. The queen patted Buvana's head. Buvana's ears flapped. I wonder why Bhuwana didn't flinch. Didn't she know that the queen was cruel? Didn't she know that the queen had stolen her? What the little girl says is true, the queen says, smiling at me. Her smile was kind, not mean at all. I stared at her in surprise, but parts of her story are missing. I loved Avani the queen went on. I loved Avani when I first saw her. She is so beautiful. Her name is Bhuwana, I corrected. Avani. Bhuwana. What's the difference? The queen asked. I was angry. Queen. Thief. What's the difference? I answered. The guards lifted their swords higher. I knew I had gone too far. I love Avani. Bhuwana, said the queen. She is charming. Her skin is the lightest gray I've ever seen. That's a sign of true royalty. Bhuwana's eyes lowered as if she was embarrassed by the praise. Go on, I said, glaring at the queen. I do not take orders, especially from a poor little country girl. Bhuwana's Queen Chola was angry, but she also looked amused. After I saw the elephant, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Continued the queen. I turned around. My heart raced. If only I had stayed with Bhuwana that day. I stood, admiring the elephant. She made me laugh. She was mischievous and beautiful, a bit like myself when I was a girl. The queen looked at me. And also a bit like you, she added. I blushed. I did not steal the elephant. I brought her, said the queen. I clutched Bhuwana's trunk to keep from toppling downward in surprise. Bought her, I repeated. From whom? The queen looked down to the crowd. From him, she said, pointing. I turned to look. You, I cried. There stood my brother Samir. Samir tried to hide, but I had already spotted him. Is it true? I demanded. Samir looked down at his feet. It is true, Lally, he answered. My throat filled with a lump so huge that no matter how hard I swallowed, it would not go away. Why? I whispered. We can't afford to keep Bhuwana, Samir explained. She eats everything around her. She won't work. She's nothing more than a pet, and people don't keep elephants as pets. I do, said the queen, but no one was listening to her anymore. She was more than a pet. She saved me when I was a baby, I argued. Samir nodded. Our parents know that you love her, she said. That's why they kept her. They would do anything to make you happy. He stuck out his chest. He was trying to look older than he was really worth. I saved the family, he announced. I sold Bhuwana. And you kept the money for yourself, I shouted. Samir was my brother, but I didn't know if I loved him anymore. I slid down Bhuwana's trunk to the ground. I stood in front of my brother, glaring at him. I didn't keep the money. I gave it to our parents. I told them to use it to buy you clothes. Clothes? I gasped. I looked down at my clothing. It was dirty and ragged. But otherwise, it was fine. Samir's face reddened. Clothes for dancing, he explained. I thought if you had nice clothes, you can become dancers. His dreams would come true. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I could never be happy without Bhuwana, even if I was a dancer, I said. Samir nodded and said, yes, that's why our parents sent me to find you. They asked me to buy Bhuwana back. Samir held a handful of gold coins up to the queen. The queen shook her head. A deal is a deal. Bhuwana is mine now. The lump in my throat was growing. I knew Samir was right. I couldn't keep Bhuwana. At the palace, Bhuwana would get all the food she wanted. She'll be taken care of. I had to let her go. I patted Bhuwana's huge, thick leg. She swung her head to look at me. Goodbye, I said. I turned and grabbed Samir's arm. Let's go. Wait, cried Queen Chola. I froze. I had forgotten that I called the queen a liar and a thief. Now I was going to be punished. But when I turned around, the queen was smiling. Samir, I would like you to take care of Buvana, clean the stable and feed her. Samir nodded happily. You say you are a dancer? She asked. I blushed. I want to be a dancer, I replied. The queen crossed her arms. Show me, she demanded. Show her, I thought. I had never danced for anyone but my family. Samir nudged me. Buvana nuzzled me with her trunk. I gulped and took a few steps to the side. Then I twirled and bowed as I seen the other dancers do. The crowd clapped. The queen was silent. Not bad. Not good, but maybe with some training. Samir draped his arm around me and squeezed. It was the closest thing to a hug that I ever gotten from him. The queen Chola smiled. I like you, Lally, she said. You are stubborn. You would do anything for those you love, she added. And I would like you to stay at the palace and learn to dance. And that's how I became Lally, the royal elephant dancer. People from all over the kingdom see me dance with Buvana. I danced on her back and on her head. I even twirled on her raised trunk. I loved the crowds who came to see me dance, but most of all, I loved to see the faces of my parents and Samir, watching me with pride. And that is the end of the story. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel and put a like down. And I'll see you next time. Bye.